Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel, and in today's lesson we are going to talk about Lev Vygotsky's theory of cognitive development in social relationships. Just then a man came up to Jesus and asked, "Teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life?" That is in Matthew chapter 19 verses 16. So learning begins with asking questions, just as this man came up to Jesus to ask him what he must do in order to get eternal life. So who was Lev Vygotsky? Lev Vygotsky, he was a Russian psychologist, and Lev Vygotsky developed the social cultural theory of development, and he believed that a child's learning and thinking developed mainly through social interaction and culture, and that children learn best when they interact with one another. So what are the key points in Lev Vygotsky's theory? Lev believed that learning comes before development. So there is the social interaction, and Lev said that learning first happens between people, that is the social level. Then it happens inside the child, that is the individual level. Then that children learn and interact with their teachers, with the more knowledgeable others, parents, peers, and also the community. Children don't just grow, the children don't just grow and then learn. They first learn, then their thinking develops. That was what Lev Vygotsky believed and said. Zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development, this is the gap between what a child can do alone and what a child can do with help. So for example, a child can solve a maths problem alone, but with the guidance from the teacher, the child is able to solve the problem, the maths problem. This space is the zone of proximal development. So as you can understand properly, like for example, let's give another example. A child is unable to swim, but when the child is given help with a more knowledgeable other, the child is able to swim. So that space between what the child can do alone and what the child can do with help, that is the zone of proximal development. Then we have the scaffolding. The scaffolding, this is the temporary support given by a teacher or an adult, and this support is gradually removed as the child becomes independent. So for example, let's say a child who is unable to stand, or the child who is crawling. Then a parent or the more knowledgeable other provides the child with a chair or a table where the child is able to support himself with. For example, to start standing, but as the child stands, he's standing while touching the table. Then gradually, the parent or the more knowledgeable other removes the table, and now the child is able to walk on his or her own. Now the table, that was the scaffolding. And Lev Vygotsky believed that a learner or a child should be given the scaffolding for them to solve problems, or even easy for them to develop and learn. So what are the roles of language? Lev Vygotsky believed that language is the most important tool for thinking. And they are the three types of speech. There is the social speech, that is talking to others, which he believed is the most important one. Then the private speech, that is talking to oneself out loud. That is, for example, after the people talk together, then the child goes alone somewhere and starts talking to oneself out loud. And then there is the inner speech, that is the thinking silently. And once you get the inner speech and you're thinking silently, you develop quickly, and your language and your cognitive develops. Then he believed that private speech helps children to develop self-regulation. The culture and the tools. The cognitive development depends on the cultural role, values, what your culture believes, what your culture does, because that is the same thing the child is going to learn from as the child interacts. The language, the symbols, the technology. For example, like there are these kids. Let's give an example of a child who is exposed to the media, and then there is this child who comes from the village, for example, and this technology is not available. So, and the child who's able to access this technology learns faster because the child can be looking at the YouTube videos, the child can be looking at the songs, the child can be looking at the educational videos, and the child will be able to know more than the child who is not exposed to the technology. Then there is the community practices, and children in different cultures develop differently because their learning tools differ. Let's give an example also of two twins who are born from the same family. Then there is the boy and there is the girl. So the boy, because the parents want and the parents believe that the boy should be very hardworking, and they believe that the girl should be the beauty of the family. So as the young boy grows, so the parents will take the young boy to a different room, and they will provide the child with so many scaffoldings. But the girl is in the other room, or is with the parents, just being carried around, being praised, being whatever, So this child, if you can realize, then the boy is with the more knowledgeable other in the other room. What you will notice that this boy will grow, his abilities will be faster, his cognitive will be faster, and he will be able to walk faster. He will be, while he is walking, the girl is still crawling, because the boy has been provided with the small scaffolds rather than the girl has. So this is how the point children in different cultures develop differently because their learning tools differ. What are the main principles in Lev Vygotsky's theory? Learning precedes development. Social interactions drive cognitive growth. Language shapes thinking. Culture influences development, and guidance from the more knowledgeable other is very crucial. So what is the application of, how can we apply this in our classes as teachers? We can use group works and peer teachings. We apply scaffoldings. We identify our learners' zone of proximal development, what they can do and what they cannot do alone. Then we should encourage discussions and dialogues in class, and we should also pair strong leaders with the weaker ones in order for them to assist each other, and this one will promote learning, and the learning will be better for everybody. So this is what Lev Vygotsky believed, and in Lev Vygotsky we can see that he has brought up the concept of the zone of proximal development. He also brought scaffolding, and he has also put in the more knowledgeable other. And this he really says about the social interaction, and in our human life and in what we do right now, we should apply this theory to our children in order to encourage and to support learning. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and I believe that I will see you in my next lesson. Otherwise, please subscribe and like this video. Thank you.